Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Team Braconi Live. Today we're talking about market shifts, mentality, and mistakes. Without any further ado, your hosts, Alfredo and Steve Braconi.
Thank you. We're very excited to be here today. We've been getting a lot of great feedback. Thank you for everyone who's been viewing and chiming in with their comments and especially questions. We really want to take some opportunities to address those questions as they come in. So we have a few topics we want to go over today and kind of we'll bullet point them and then we'll dive right in. So one question we get a lot is for newer agents, what we feel are some of the roadblocks or a lot of it could be mental roadblocks. They're doing everything they can to push their business to the next level, but they're not quite getting there. So we're going to dive into some of the things that we feel are going to be beneficial for them. Another topic that we're really excited to dive into are what we feel as a new buyer when they purchase their home. They're all excited, and some of the common mistakes that they make as they enter the home and start their new lives there. And then we'll discuss a recent Wall Street Journal article that has mentioned that obviously we have a 20-year high as interest rates top 7%. And then lastly, we will talk about some of the thoughts and processes that buyers and sellers go into as we head into the holiday season, what the mentality is of both the buyer in that period of time and the seller. So without further ado, Steve, some questions that have come in, as I mentioned at the top, are basically kind of what we can do to help some of the maybe more less experienced agents kind of break through, whether it's mental, they're giving their all, they're making the calls, they're just reaching a frustration point. And what advice could you give that maybe could help them?
Absolutely. So, and thank you to everyone that's watching. As you said, we're super excited to do this podcast. It's gaining a lot of traction, and we appreciate all the questions and support. Can't thank everyone enough. With that said, so positivity is crucial, especially as the market begins to shift. And obviously, systems that are in place will make sure or try to ensure that agent succeeds, and it succeeds at a high level. So you and I sitting here aren't going to really understand what system an agent has in place or doesn't have in place. But I believe structure and definitely positive mental outlook will help. To me, this market, and as it shifts, creates a tremendous opportunity for agents, both that are at a top level producing volume like us, and also someone that's just entered the market. When I was just entering real estate 20 years ago, the market was kind of peaking and then obviously began to recess. And as that recession hit, I had two choices. I could kind of buckle down, get systematic and work really hard, or kind of throw in the towel. And we saw a lot of people leave the business. But as I've mentioned in the past, I really didn't have much of a safety net. So I really buckled down, got systematic, and really gained market share. So I do think, I want to make that very clear. I do think there's a very huge opportunity, as long as the right systems are in place, to gain market share for agents. But as we discussed, I was going to discuss a quick analogy, but I try to relate it to things I do in my life day to day. And one of the things I do every morning is I work out at the gym. And if you go to the gym and you just start to go to the gym, you say, I'm going to make this part of my daily routine. I'm going to start eating right. I'm going to get my nutrition in. I'm going to change my lifestyle, because I want to change my physique, or I want to make sure that I make healthy choices, and I want to appear that I'm looking healthy as well, right? So you want your physique to change in a certain fashion. So you begin to work out, lift weights, run, whatever that might be. If you do that for a workout, even if you do it correctly, and even if you diet correctly for that particular day, and you come home and you shower, and maybe you have a protein shake or whatever it might be, and you look in the mirror, you look at yourself, you're highly unlikely going to notice any changes, right? And probably day 2, day 3, day 7, even day 14, et cetera, will be the same thing. But over the course of time, if you believe in that system, if you believe that working out in the fashion that you are and the structure that you are and you have the other things in place, which might be sleep and nutrition and certain things that go into place of becoming healthy, over the course of time, you will notice changes, and other people will notice changes that haven't seen you in a while. It's the same thing with real estate. So when you go back to relating it to real estate, the hard work that those agents put in today, even if it is correctly done and systematic, it's highly unlikely they're going to notice anything today. They're not, first of all, they're never going to collect a check, because we know that takes 30 days minimal, 60, 90 days, even if they make an offer today and it's accepted today. But the reality is that doesn't happen either.
Like the whole process trains you for that mindset. You know,
Right.
Even when you get some success, you got to wait for that check.
Right.
So,
It's a marathon.
Yeah.
So as long as you're putting in the time, it is a snowball effect, and so is working out. So as you start to develop your body physically and become in better shape, you can push yourself a little harder, and it becomes a little bit easier. You become used to eating a certain way, used to working out a certain way. The same thing with real estate. As you continue to make follow-up calls and have a system in place to assist your buyers and your sellers, and you become more efficient at it and proficient at it, those things will pay off and pay dividends in the end. So again, an agent nor someone that's working out is going to notice changes immediately. But my advice would be to continue with that system, provided it's a proven one, and believe in it. And over the course of time, you're going to notice those changes.
and it's the mental aspect too, because you know, I hear oftentimes some dietitians or just randomly here online and things like that, like, don't jump on the scale every single time. You're going to psych yourself out. You went to the gym. For those who want to lose weight, that type of diet. You jump on the scale, didn't notice much difference. Next day, you do the same thing, and you do it over and over and over again. You're trying to constantly check yourself, but if you just follow the process, you're going to get those results, as you were mentioning.
Well, and the definition of a diet is a permanent change in your nutrition.
Right.
It's not a 2-week, 1 month, 2-month thing. And that's the same with your business. You can't sprint in real estate like a fad diet, I guess they call it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never done one, so I think that's what they call it.
Right.
They don't work, right? You'll lose
is-
weight and then it's a yo-yo and you gain, and that's actually more unhealthy anyway. Same thing for real estate. I do see agents that go crazy. They're doing great. They do a sprint, but it's so burnout tempo that after a month, they don't see the results they want to see, or maybe they do. Either way, they let their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And then so it's one of those things that it has to be a permanent situation and decision to purposely move forward towards that goal.
Yeah, and if marketing is involved, where we're talking about monetary outlays of business expense, do something that you can sustain for 12 months. It may take 6 months to get results, but do something you can sustain over a longer period of time, so that, like you said, they throw out a lot of money and in 1 month they don't get the results they want, and now their money's burned out as well.
Yep. And we had actually one of our agents, who's actually a very good agent, they said something I brought up to you 2 weeks ago, where, they felt as though they were doing everything possible. I'm doing everything I possibly can. And that's fair. I just never thought that way. Like, the fact that he said that, I'm like, wow, I've never thought, that's honest to God truth. I've never thought I've done everything possible. I always thought when I went to bed, there's something more I could have done. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it is. I could have done something better, and I could have done something more. And then I try to figure out what that might be. That just was my mentality. So I think just a slight shift in mentality. Now, he's doing a great job. He has a great effort. He's fantastic. So I'm not saying that. But just the mentality of, hey, I'm doing everything I can.
And just making small shifts in your
Small
mentality.
shifts.
Also, like you said, doing everything, and they're doing great, but maybe just a tweak in their mentality is going to get them a little bit further ahead.
Since we're using sports as an analogy, would you say that, like, you want to be in shape, you got to run, do push-ups, do sit-ups, squat, like you have to do multiple things, and maybe some agents are just running, but they're like, I don't want to do the push-ups.
Yeah, and it depends what you're trying to do, right? So a marathon runner is going to train differently than a sprinter. It's going to train differently than a bodybuilder. And it's no different than in real estate. Are you trying to obtain multifamily clients, commercial clients, luxury clients? Are you trying to work mostly with buyers, mostly with sellers, a little bit of both? And then where are you gathering those people from? Where are you going to target your market? So I totally agree with that. I just think that's when I speak of systems, that all goes into the agent system initially, in my opinion. Look, we're all entrepreneurs in real estate. It's your own business. Even all the agents that work for me, Alfredo's works for me. He's my manager on my team, manages all my agents. He's still an independent contractor. He's still an entrepreneur. It's still his business. So yes, he has my branding and that's the thing. And we do work together, but we're all entrepreneurs. So if he doesn't sit down each year, which he does, and he's been extremely successful, and write down that business plan and have target goals and do everything possible, and then always think, in my opinion, and he does the same thing, I could always do a little more. How do we shift this? And he's always coming to me with ideas for the team. Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, why don't we put this into place? And that's the kind of mentality I think that drives success.
Yeah, and you mentioned I love, using sports as an analogy for whether it's business or just life in general, because the athletes that are most successful, I mean, obviously you need to have talent, but they are often the ones you hear that they're spending the extra hours, getting the mental part of the game right, or their physical, part of the game, but it's in the gym. It's
raw talent only gets you so far.
Exactly.
Without hard work, and same with real estate. Yeah. And we've had very polished agents that we thought were going to kill it, right? And we retain them and we train them to do what we like to do. And you can't teach effort, in my opinion. You could show them effort, but it's up to them to put the effort in. So as much as they were talented, and they still got more deals than someone that would be untalented would get, they never caught the agents, in my opinion, that didn't maybe have as much natural talent, but had a drive to succeed. They had effort, and they just weren't willing to lose. They wanted to be the best they could, and they found ways to do that.
So I guess some of the advice would be, find a mentor who can get your mental part correct.
Mental part, systematic. Make sure your system's right too. I keep talking about a system which we have in place for the team, and the way that I derived that system was I figured out over the course of years what worked for me and didn't work for me, and we've tweaked it to work for kind of the masses with the agents we retain, and they have to fit a certain mold for us to work with them in the system, I feel. But it's successful, and we know it's proven, right? We even track, like I said before, how many clients we've given them, how many times they've met those clients, how many closings. So we know all of that. We know what a great agent does, an average and a poor. And oftentimes it is effort. There's lack of follow-ups and there's lack of drive. So you have to have a system in place that's proven. No different than going back to the gym. If you go to the gym, and I see guys at the gym that just, it's fine. It's social for them, right? But they go there, they drink their coffee and they're talking, and that's fine. But that's not going to get you, if you're trying to build that physique. And they're like, hey, I've been to the gym for an hour every day for 3 months. I don't notice anything. Well, because you're talking.
There's no structure, right? There's no structure also. I see people that, now it's usually on the phone, but they were writing down their workout routines. And that's giving yourself structure. It's holding yourself accountable. It's no different. It's no different than how you're going to be successful in real estate or life in general. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So let's shift gears and now talk about the other topic, or the next topic, which was some common mistakes that buyers make when they move into a home. I have some ideas, but I wanted to get your initial feedback.
I've seen this a lot, and we kind of talk about this quite often. One of the biggest mistakes that I see, which is so simple to fix, is they being the buyers, they get overwhelmed with a bigger property. Oftentimes the properties we sell are large. They're either coming from a rental or a smaller home or a condo. And they may go from 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms with living room and dining room and finished basement. So they feel the need, and it's an overwhelming stress to fully furnish these homes off the bat. So what happens is a couple of things. In my opinion, they're already stretched oftentimes because it's a big purchase, right? This is the biggest asset, and they've really put a lot of money down typically for a down payment. They're stressed because they know what their payment's going to be going forward. And now they're spending more money to immediately fully furnish maybe a 4,000 square foot home or larger sometimes, coming from 900 square feet.
Yeah.
But not only does it stress them financially, but then nearly always after I speak with them 6 months, a year in, oh, I wish I didn't buy this, or this didn't fit right in the room. We kind of rushed. We wish we waited. So we always advise our clients, outfit the home with what you see necessary for now. You're coming from 900 square feet, right? Furnish 1,500 square feet or 2,000 square feet of the home.
Baby steps.
And then fill it in. Because not only will you have more time to decide exactly what you want, but as you're living in the home, you're going to kind of notice certain things and think things maybe wouldn't have fit as well as you thought originally, or maybe you want something different, whether it be color or shape. So we always advise that they move in, they start to enjoy the home, and then they furnish the unnecessary. There's certain things you need a bed.
Yeah,
You need a couch.
Get the essentials.
You probably need a TV.
Live.
You need things in the kitchen, but there's other things, perhaps in the basement, perhaps a fifth bedroom, perhaps a den that you don't need to outfit yet. Maybe even in the foyer, you're not quite sure. Get the things that are necessary and then fill things in. You see the same thing? Or?
Absolutely. I'm, to your point, it's not necessary, especially, when you don't need to use those rooms right away. There's that whole rush of you're busy enough when you're closing on a home. You don't have to worry about furnishing the entire home right off the bat. You can do those things at a later time. But another thing that is, I think, even more crucially done, and I think in some cases in error, is full renovations of the home. Right. I think you can do that in a little piecemeal as well. But more importantly, it's always the glitz and the glam versus what actually needs to get done. There's deferred maintenance sometimes or oftentimes on homes, and those are things that should be tackled right away, because that stuff creeps into your home and causes further damage. Whether it's draining water away from the home, doing the things like that are going to help maintain the actual structural integrity of the home over time, versus worrying about. If the kitchen is functional, and you're tight on budget, focus on shoring up the home in general before you tackle doing that brand new kitchen or bathroom.
Just grading the soil in a sloping manner away from the home solves the vast majority of water intrusion issues I've seen. And then secondly would be certainly gutters, which typically does tie into the soil going the wrong way anyway. So if you have the gutters cleared of leaves and debris, right, and draining away from the home, and then you have whatever excess water is falling near the home draining away because the soil sloped, that gets rid of a ton of the water issues, which is oftentimes the complaints when we sell a home, that all of a sudden people realize, hey, I've got some water in the home, never happened before. The other thing is maintenance on items can really maximize the life expectancy and minimize repairs. So exactly. HVAC, with your cooling and your heating system. Are you maintaining the hot water heaters properly? Are you maintaining the appliances properly? Are you cleaning things? I have a whole house generator, right? So we get it serviced. They're coming actually today. So we have these contracts in place, and no one likes to spend extra money, but I feel as though that's a protection, for my home, my working components of the home, in order to have them function properly and efficiently so that they last the length of lifetime that they're intended.
Yes, exactly. Hugely important. Is not, don't skip on your maintenance and deferred maintenance that have happened prior to you even getting into the home. And what the beautiful thing is, you typically have an inspection report you can rely on. So use that, go through it, and pinpoint some of the items that the inspector noted. They oftentimes note many maintenance items within the inspection report.
And that goes along with the furniture thing.
Yeah.
The home inspection, there's a lot of things that perhaps should be done immediately. It depends on the inspection, but there's certain inspections that we're like, you really want to address this immediately. Either the seller should be doing it. If they don't, as soon as you move in, you want to get this done. And then there's other things that are just more for knowledge over the course of time, in the next 10 years, next 5 years, and you can kind of note those things. And if they're not noted, depending on the inspector, it's easy enough to Google them and figure out what a normal time frame would be. But again, prioritizing, no different than the rooms with the furnishings. I think you prioritize on that list because it could be overwhelming. The inspectors we use, rightfully so, are extremely thorough, where we get sometimes pages and pages of reports, and you might have 50 items, 60 items, depending on the side of the home. And of those 60 items, there might be 2 or 3 in reality that need to be addressed immediately. And not to say the others don't, but a lot of that is cautionary, where if you don't do this, this may occur. So you just got to read the report, figure out what needs to be done immediately. But on that note, also, I feel vendor lists.
I was just about to say.
Vendor lists are super important. And oftentimes the realtor can be a trusted source, but so can neighbors, and so can the seller. If the seller's leaving the home and they were happy with their landscaper, snow removal, a roofer, a contractor for plumbing or electric, et cetera, those are names you want to get. And I always recommend the clients call a couple people just to see who they feel comfortable with. But I always recommend, I never recommend they wait until the last moment. If you have a problem and all of a sudden you need a contractor to come in, number one, they're usually busy. You don't have any type of relationship with them. And number two, you're hoping that their pricing is going to be reasonable and you have an emergency now. Now you've got an active water leak or an electrical issue that needs to be addressed immediately. And that doesn't give you a lot of leeway to shop around and make sure that that person not only is reasonably priced, but also, a trusted vendor that will do a good job and do it correctly.
Yeah, but we've heard some nightmare stories of vendors. So you definitely want to make sure you're there. Like as Steve said, there's multiple resources that you have available. Your agent, your neighbor, get all those referral sources. Do it ahead of time. In fact, actually, do that ahead of time when there's not a problem, right? So now you move in. Talk to your neighbor, talk to your realtor. Hey, we don't have anything going on right now, but in case of a plumbing issue, who do you recommend? In case of a roof issue, who do you get that list? Have that in your house. I think that's very sound advice.
And those are just three. It's a lot of things we go over that we see over the course of 2 decades that buyers move in and they make small mistakes that we try to forewarn against. But again, one was trying to furnish everything immediately and picking the wrong things or things you wouldn't have picked otherwise and being overwhelmed with that budget. The second thing was the maintenance, keeping up with maintenance of the home, making sure that things are done properly to make sure you're maximizing the life expectancy of the working components of the home. And the third would be to get a vendor list to make sure that in the event you have a problem, you have someone that's a trusted source that's going to do the job reasonably priced and correctly. That's more important to me is they do it correctly.
Now, for our buyers now entering this market with the interest rates at a 20-year high, recently Wall Street Journal had an article about that, and some of the they pointed out that just 7 weeks ago, and this article was I think on Friday, just 7 weeks ago the rate was below 6, and a year ago it was just over 3. So how quickly things change. I know you've had an opportunity to review
We've
that.
been saying this.
Yeah.
I've been saying this is going to happen. And I think it's going to continue to rise. I think we'll go minimal 8, which I've been saying, possibly higher. And that article is actually excellent. And if anyone inquires, we could send out the link for the Wall Street Journal. It did talk about a 20-year high, and it was 7.08% interest rates for a 30-year fixed. So that's still a normal rate. 6 to 8% is historically normal. So what I am telling buyers, and I mentioned this a little bit on the last episode, depending on your position, depending on how much you're financing and how much you're putting down. So the more you're putting down, the less you're financing. So that could change. And the less you're putting down, the more you're financing, that also could change your position, because the opportunity cost of, I do believe property values will, in general, throughout the U.S. come down in the next year or 2 years, possibly 3. The interest rates will likely rise. So it offsets, and sometimes even more so. So your holding cost will rise even though the total purchase price goes down. So again, depending on how much you're financing, that would affect you more or less. And so you have to talk to a mortgage lender, or they could contact us directly and we would go over your specific scenario. But there is a sweet spot. And I think it's probably about 2 months ago, it started this sweet spot in the sense that there's not so many, and now we're seeing much less multiple bids.
Yeah.
A lot of properties going at or under the asking price when we know they would have gone 10, 15% above asking price even a few months ago. So there's been a very severe and swift shift depending on price point. When the interest rate has come up, but it's still going up, right? So there's that sweet spot. If you're putting 20% down and you know your holding costs, you can get the home for considerably less than you could 2 or 3 months ago, knowing it's going to continue to come down most likely for the next year or 2, 3, possibly, maybe even more. We don't know. but your interest rate will rise. It's not the worst idea to lock in, get in the game, so to speak, build equity as long as it's long term. And again, like I said in the last episode, if you're calling me and saying 6 months or a year, you'd like to flip the property, that's a different scenario. We're talking about someone that's moving into the home.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
So we do have a live question, and I want to interrupt you guys because it is the topic we're talking about right now, and it's from Pat, and it's: should buyers be worried about pricing on properties going down or the possible rise of interest rates?
I think always the rise of interest rates. I don't foresee we're going to get the full collapse that we saw in terms of home values that we saw in I'm not a fortune teller, but I don't. There's a lot better.
The lending is different.
The lending is different. There's a lot more equity in homes that have been built in, but the rise of interest rates are your primary concern right now because as Steve said, they could go up to 8. They could even go up to 10. We don't know. The Fed is forcing the rate to go. They're pushing the rates up higher. Not directly. It's not always directly correlated to the 30-year mortgage, but it typically does end up following.
Well, the seller is going to be the one that's concerned with the loss of equity or the decreasing price values. The buyer would likely be happy that was the case. I think if the interest rates rise, like I said, exponentially more so than the loss of equity or the lowering of the prices, that's where the issue becomes. And we have run scenarios lately for clients where even if they had paid 10% more not too long ago, based on that interest rate that day, their payment was still considerably less than it is today. So there is a balance there. And I think that's what people have to understand. And again, we're willing to run that math for any of our clients or prospective clients. We're also willing to give them a mortgage lender who could dive a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you want to get into a market where the rates are going down and the home prices are going down, but doesn't happen. So you have to work within what market you have, and we currently anticipate rates to go up, and there's a lot more opportunity for buyers to get. I'm seeing, to your point, even when one of my clients makes an offer, and even maybe there was another offer, it's not always knocking them out. It's always like, oh, yeah, actually that deal is not looking too strong. Whereas in the past, once they accept an offer out of 10 or 20, you didn't have much chance to get in there. So the opportunity for the buyer is greater now than it was back in several months ago. The rates most likely will continue to go up. So I think your primary concern is the higher rate because that's going to increase your monthly. Even as the value of the home drops slightly, the increase in the rate will make a huge difference in your holding cost. And we did talk about this last week. I never use that term, marry or date the rate and marry the home. But what I do say is, if you can afford the rate where it is today and the home value where it is today for the home you want, then it's fine. Because at some point you'll refinance. Whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller, but if you can afford it now, you may not be able to afford in several months the same property that you want today, because the rate going up a point or 2 points is going to make a huge difference on your monthly.
I think the main point that I'd like to make is there's a sweet spot, but that sweet spot moves depending on the client's specific parameters. Parameters being, what is their down payment and what's the size of the loan? Like, even if they're putting a lot down, like a 50% down, if they're buying a $2 million, $3 million, $4 million house, $6 million house, which we sell, that's a different loan and more affected by a large increase in rates than a starter home, which in our area is sadly $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, right? And then if they're putting 50% down, you got $300,000 loan. That's a much less affected value monthly than the larger, right? So it depends on the specific parameters of the client.
For sure. So lastly, and I think this is going to be a fun topic, is as we approach the holiday season, we almost always see a slowdown, and kind of what's the mentality of the buyer and the seller when we do get into the holiday season, and maybe some opportunity for for both parties that are kind of going or missed or not realized, unrealized, basically.
So I get that question a lot, especially from sellers. So sellers will come to me and say, we really want to sell, but should we wait till after the holidays? Should we wait till the spring? Because the spring market in our area, let's face it, that's the busiest season we have in northern New Jersey for real estate. And I joke with them and I say, if I didn't do any real estate business, I would just leave the country, maybe go to Italy for 3 months and come back. Like, we sell a lot of homes. The difference is the buyer volume is lower than it will be in the spring. However, the inventory is lower.
Mm-hmm.
So if an active buyer is looking for a particular property and they have a time frame where they want to be in either by the holidays or right after the holidays, there's far less competition for that seller. So it would depend on the area, and it would depend on the year, and it also depends on the weather. So sometimes I'll say, so close to Christmas, you're a week away, or Hanukkah or the New Year, let's wait until kind of returns are done the second week in January, if the weather's not too inclement. If it's 3 feet of snow on the ground and the photos are going to come out that way, and we can barely shovel a walkway to show your home, and there's just snow in the forecast, it's in the teens, probably not the best time. But there's other winters we've had that are pretty mild, and we've stayed extremely active. So again, to recap, I think it's a good time, depending on the person's timing. If they have to be out or they're relocating, it's not a panic time, because there's far less to compete with, but you have to find the right buyer. I like to buy properties around the holidays and in August, both of which, August is, we call the dog days of summer. And then the holidays between Thanksgiving-ish and the second week in January, when returns are done, are very slow relative to the rest of the year. But we do a lot of transactions still, and investors are very active because there's less buyers. So sometimes buyers do have an advantage in the sense that there's less offers being made, even in a strong market, never mind a weak one, where the general public is pulled in other directions, being traveling for the holidays, spending time with family for the holidays, shopping, returns, things that they do other than real estate. So a lot of buyers do put purchasing a home on the side, on hold till the holidays are over. So again, that the buyer volume goes down. But if the buyer finds the right property, it's a great time to buy. And the seller is in a good position if they get the right buyer, because there's less to choose from.
Exactly. I think something that, if you're looking around and you mentioned the inventory is lower, maybe talk to your agent, your buyer agent, and say, have there been any homes that have come off this month because maybe they wanted to hold off? If any of them are interested, maybe we could reach out and say, I know you took your home off, maybe off the market, maybe you did it for the holidays, but I have a buyer that's looking just for this, exactly like your home, and would you be interested in, having us come through? And they may say no, but you never know. I mean, out of 10 homes that might be in that market you're looking for, maybe 2 are actually, we took it off, but we're definitely still in the market to sell.
Most people still want to sell. In general, in my experience, most people still want to sell. They just don't want to have their home opened to the public during the holidays.
Right.
Maybe they have a Christmas tree up, maybe they have presents everywhere, maybe they have guests in town. But if someone is serious about buying the home, generally speaking, they still want to sell the home. There are other factors that could have changed their mind permanently, but generally speaking, it's more of a temporary, pull it off the market, put it back on as things open
100%,
up.
and that happens a lot. So you might have some opportunities.
We have a whole division on our team, and their job is to contact properties that we're not successful selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give it to our agents to sell them. So we have a system in place, and it does work when we contact them. And we've gotten several listings that were unsuccessful in the past that we've taken and we've sold successfully. So those people did take it off the market, but they still wanted to sell. And ultimately, we got it done. But I think that's a great idea.
Oh yeah. I think that can maybe open up some opportunities that weren't there. And to your point earlier, as a buyer, when the market is not active, you usually have a better, more of a better advantage than when you're dealing with the busier season like the spring. So, and then, you mentioned investors are more active because that's, they're trying to take advantage of the situation.
Absolutely. That was great.
Great stuff, guys. We do want to remind you guys that we are live. So next time when you watch the Team Braconi live podcast, you could put a question, comment, or concern in the comment section. We can answer it live with you. That wraps it up.
I do want to say one more thing.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want to thank, I said it in the beginning. I do want to thank everyone. I've gotten so many private messages with people I haven't talked to in years. And, you guys are doing a great job. We really appreciate it. So more than that, I'd ask that people give us feedback, negative, positive, constructive feedback, so that we can continue to adjust and pivot. The market's shifting very quickly. I think we'll try to be as informative as possible as those shifts occur, to try to keep our clients informed, try to help other agents like we're doing, and keep everyone abreast of what's going on with the market.
Yeah, I think we want to provide some value where, as a buyer or seller, you may not understand about our industry, so that when you do approach a listing agent or a buyer's agent, you have a better understanding of maybe the questions you should ask or how the process works.
Great stuff, guys. So there you have it. Another episode of Team Braconi Live, and we will see you next time.